So to me, grief carries with it the thought, the expectation, the definition that there's been some loss. Now, with grief in general, grief can be over the death of a loved one, where a person has passed on and is no longer around. But grief with cancer is actually an ongoing issue because you're still alive. But once you've been diagnosed with cancer, you're different for life. A lot of the time, depending on your cancer type, your cancer treatment, you're never told you are cured. You're only in remission, again, or whichever other word, or no evidence of disease, or no abnormalities detected, or complete metabolic response. They give all these fancy names for, you've still got cancer, and how you're going to deal with it. So grieving, my understanding of grief is that it's a set of stages, 5, 7 stages, depending on the model, through which a grieving person needs to travel, and at each stage there's a different time period you can be in that phase or stage. And until you can get over that grief and come out the other side, it's going to slow down your healing process and getting on with your life.
It's big, and it's at different levels at different times. So the grief process can be anger, can be sadness, it can be despair, utter despair for your own life and for others. And I think when I think about my family dealing with it, if I'm not there, I've even thought about what songs, what would you want it to be remembered by? It's harder to talk to your friends and family about it because they don't want to see you upset, and they'll go, it's all right, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. But that's probably the inner private part of you that you don't let others in very readily. Yeah, I think we all have grief and anxiety in our lives. Obviously, as our parents age, we've got that to deal with, and I'm actually going through that at the moment with my mum, and that's hard. It brings up tears. I think it was such an onslaught of from surgery and the treatment that you sort of left, and then it's now, okay, now I've physically sort of together, but now I've really got to get my emotions together, and that's probably the hardest part, is actually supporting your emotional well-being.
Oh, definitely. The whole grief aspect was multi-layered. Oh, certainly the diagnosis, I felt a sense of grief and loss, I guess, and there was the grief of no longer having this prostate cancer under control. There was the grief of no longer being able to function overnight, as what I saw as a man, being able to maintain intimacy with my wife. The loss of continence, it's a huge thing for men. And then some men can be incontinent, can be incontinent 6 weeks after the operation. They go, well, how the hell has that happened? I think for me, it was just not being able to be intimate when I wanted to. And I call it, particularly for prostate cancer, my view is it's a disenfranchised grief, because blokes don't go around talking about this in the pub. It's not talked about in, so what is the loss here for you? What is the loss that I'm feeling? It's only on one-to-one that I find that happens. And I think in that first 12 months, there was a whole lot of grief going on for me in all shades and different layers, and I couldn't always put a word to it, but I knew there was something going on. That's why I eventually took myself back to counselling to work through this issue, because I knew it was interfering with how I functioned in the relationship. I mean, we were okay, but I wasn't okay. Well, it can be sadness, certainly. Depression, men will be depressed, particularly if they're on hormone treatment, but men can be depressed after this treatment as well. Whether you call it depression or not, I would argue it's just a loss, because the male has lost something. They've lost their prostate, mate, but they've lost the ability to be intimate with their wife or their partners. There's the loss of being able to control their continence. So there is a loss. So with loss, which we all experience through our lifespan, there is a grief that follows it, and it's as long as it needs to be.
I can say now, with 10 years of experience, I wish I had some of that knowledge way back then 10 years ago. I wish I had the peer support groups. I wish I had the Facebook pages. I've got a better understanding of the big picture and where this is going. Another key thing I've learned is that as a patient, I actually have rights. I have a right to talk to my doctors. If I don't like what they say, I can get a second opinion or a third opinion. And I can choose something that sits with me. So yes, I've learnt over the years how to better navigate the healthcare system, because I, rightly or wrongly, battled a lot of it by myself. I learnt the hard way, so to speak. And that's another reason why I think to do videos like this is so important, so that people realise you are not alone in your cancer journey. Please feel empowered to reach out and ask for help, because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of organisations out there, there are a lot of toolkits that people can introduce you to help address any particular problem that you've got with your cancer.
It does rely on you having an inner strength, I think. And I think the more cancer treatment and diagnosis ongoing, second and third, that knocks the living daylights out of you. It's a bit like those dolls that you push over. Sometimes they come back quickly, but sometimes it's a bit slower. And I think knowing yourself and what you've got, and what make plans to look, short-term and long-term plans, and hopefully you can participate in those things. There's no one answer. I think you probably maybe could have 5 things that you could say, write on a bit of paper, and when I'm feeling like this is what I take a deep breath, go for a walk around the block, ring a friend, make sure you keep in contact with your psychologist or a spiritual care or whatever is someone that's important to you that will support you, to know that you're not alone. And I think that's the thing, sometimes you feel you are alone. That's pretty hard. So I guess that's that reaching out, making sure that you can take advantage or can look for things that will support you. When you're in tune with yourself and how you're feeling physically and emotionally, being kind to yourself, and it might be that you go out and have a coffee, or you go to a favourite restaurant, or you sit and listen to some music that can be calming. I guess you've got to find your own, what it is that makes you feel better. But it's okay to have a cry.
And I think I've always been emotional to a degree, but I think I've become more emotional now in allowing myself to feel those tears and allow it to come out. And sometimes I don't know what it's about, and maybe I don't need to. Maybe it's just sadness and loss and stuff sitting there that I've been not dealing with, and I've just sat on it, and it's the way it comes out. So I think allowing myself to do that, it washes the soul, lets it out, rather than sitting on it, because it'll pop out some other way, in a most inappropriate way, like anger, or sitting on it too long, internalising it for men is not a good thing as well. So it's finding strategies that they may be feeling comfortable with. Sometimes just going to a support group to hear how other men have dealt with it can take that pressure off the man thinking he's the only one and I've got to get over this because I'm a man, I must be able to deal with this. It's part of that, like you talked about earlier, we're men and we need to fix it. And sometimes there's no fixing, it's just allowing it to happen. Just dump that stuff elsewhere, get some assistance, write it out, talk about it, just dump it, because it's sitting in your head, or sitting in my head, annoying the hell out of me. It's taken up space that could be used for something else, and it's not really conducive to my life. It's not conducive to me enjoying my life and my day-to-day stuff. And also I realised I've just got to live one day at a time, which for a cancer diagnosis for most people, I realise it. Too much forward thinking creates too much anxiety. Just enjoy the day. Okay, it's 11 o'clock, we're going to go for brunch.